we have the same scenario, please. We are counting on your involvement more, like you already did these 2 days. Please ask, feel free, raise your hand. You have microphones. I'll just start with our guests with a few questions, but please, this last roundtable is related to them, to their lives as coaches, not much about offensive sets, defensive solutions, than how they live every day. For example, I'm watching here our expert for recovery. A few months ago, we published one paper together related to recovery of coaching staff, called Don't Remember Coaching Staff, Coaches and Coaching Staff in Recovery. Tell us, please, first Bob and then Nick, about your general principles in recovery, your personal recovery, after the game, after the travel, after the practice, any situation, or even after the season. Please.
I live across the street from the arena, maybe 500 meters. So at the conclusion of the game, I go to the locker room, I say something that is not so much preparation for what just happened, but setting the table for the next game. I leave a message of positive of the previous game, but I am setting the table for the next game. I go speak with the assistant coaches for 3, 5, 7 minutes. I go to my office, I get a nice cold beer, and I walk home with the beer in my hand, and I drink the beer as I walk home. I get home, my wife greets me, and then we go to a bar about a half mile away where all of our fans are. And I go to that bar, and that's very unlike a lot of American coaches. The coaches don't want to see the fans after the game, but it has been one of the things that has united me with our fans, that win or lose, I go and I see them face to face, stand up like a man after a game, no matter how we played. And I have done that for 33 years. And I stay there for about 2 hours, and I shake hands and talk, and many of our players and their families come there as well. And it has really been a very unifying force for our program, for our team, for our culture. We have created a culture because of that. And then I will go home and I will clip the tape from the game. And usually I will stay up till maybe from 11 o'clock to 1:30, 2 o'clock, clipping the tape in various categories to show to the team the next day. And I don't sleep very well. There is usually a sense of relief when we have won, and usually there's a sense of focus on the next game when we have lost. And it's a time in which you go to bed after a loss or you played poorly, and you can't wait to get up the next day to begin the process of correcting what just happened. It's a constant process, and there's no relief whatsoever. It is always in action. And you may have seen the great movie by Spielberg, Schindler's List. There's a very poignant part of the movie at the end when Schindler has opened up a factory in Czechoslovakia, and he's been given a ring by all the Jewish people, and he's walking down the tracks, and he breaks down crying, saying, "I could have gotten more, I could have done more." And I, as a coach, this is not a comparison to that tragedy in the history of the world. Believe me, coaching in the Holocaust and World War II is no comparison whatsoever. But the sense of being able to do more always haunts me. It always occupies my mind, and it always excites and energizes and enthuses me as I prepare for the next battle, for the next game, for the next day.
Thank you very much. Nick?
Coach, that's awesome. Really, really cool. I'm almost exactly the opposite of you. maybe it's because so many more games. But one thing that I do that I think maybe is different than surprises people, but I think you're right, pretty close there, Coach, too, is I almost always say nothing after the game. I go in and I say, good job, see you tomorrow. Or, we could have played better, see you tomorrow. And I go to my office. I don't have any meetings with the assistants. They go to their offices, they grab their stuff, they go home. I usually have a brief meeting with somebody in my executive assistant. She runs my calendar and my day, so I have to get ready for the next meeting the next day or whatever. And I get in my car and I go home. I live about 25-minute drive from the arena. I sleep really good after losses. I don't think I want to face it. I go, for some reason, when we lose, I go home and I pass out. And I get more excited after wins. I think we're never ever going to lose again, and I can't wait to get up the next day and get to the next game. But I do sleep pretty good. I don't watch any film the night of the game. I don't have any meetings with the front office. Don't talk to them. We've got a deal that we won't talk about the game until the next day. Take a lot of the emotion out of it. The next day, everybody's a lot calmer, whether overexcited about a great win or over-depressed about a tough loss. The next day, everybody seems a little bit more level-headed. But that was part of when I took the job. I asked for that, and they honored that. And that's it.
Thank you. Very useful. I'm sure very useful for coaches, because recovery is important for coaches as for players also. We can consider you, not us, that whole world, as a game changers. And obviously you have your own way to fill your batteries, not only physical batteries, they're intellectual batteries. How are you doing that? How you became a game changers in different parts in your job? Maybe it's some big word, but it is like that. And we agree, I'm sure, agree about it. Bob?
I watch film. I speak to players. I don't speak to many coaching colleagues during the season. I do not. I speak to my assistant coaches. I constantly seek answers to questions that I have. And I have a lot of questions. I'm a great believer, as I said, that I could have done more. When you're raised as a Catholic in the 1950s and the 1960s in New York, you're raised with the threat of going to hell every day. And I don't know how many times a nun said to me, "You're going straight to hell," because I used to think I was going to hell. My father was a New York City cop, and he was very tough. So the discipline that I grew up with, the constant challenge of not being good enough, haunts me all the time. So therefore, I am in a quest to find out, what can I do better? How can I do this? And I have no fear of weakness. I have no fear of emotion. I have no fear of admitting a mistake. I'm constantly making mistakes. And you will all learn this as you get older. You will start to cry more. You see, I think that tears are a gift from God. It tells you that something is touching your heart. So, I have cried more as a coach.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, this time we're more alike. This time we're more alike. And I'm the same. They gave me a piece of birthday cake a little bit ago, and I ate that thing in like 30 seconds. Somebody looked at me and said, "You ate that piece of cake already?" I said, "Well, I'm the youngest of 9. I'm number 9, 8 older brothers and sisters. And if I ever had a piece of cake in front of me and I didn't eat it, somebody was going to take it from me." And that was going on in my life before I got up every day. I better get up early if I wanted some cereal. And as I got up there, I'd have to fight for a bowl. I'd have to fight for a spoon. I'd have to fight for some milk. And I'd have to throw elbows to get it in my mouth. And then we'd move on to the next thing. And that would go on all day for me. So I was competing from the time I was this big until then. But so that people ask me, when the ball goes up, you're so competitive. Yeah, I'm blessed with the environment I grew up in, right? I grew up in this environment that trained me to compete. The next thing, I absolutely, before a game, understand I'm going to make mistakes. And that if I make them, and if we lose, I'm going to get a lot of shit for it. Right? I'm going to get a lot of heat. I understand it. I know it's going to happen. I'm going to make mistakes and we're going to lose some games. I say, bring the heat. One of my favorite parts of the championship run in 2019, I'm a rookie coach. I was hired to have success in the playoffs because the Raptors couldn't win in the playoffs. We get to the playoffs, game 1 at home against Orlando Magic, I think 7th seed. We lose. Kyle Lowry, one of our best players, the same, couldn't play in the playoffs. Great regular season, playoffs come. He had 0 points. 0 points, we're down 0-1 in my first playoff game as a rookie coach. Next day, I call Kyle into my office. I sit down and I say, "Well, guess what? You and I are both getting paid a lot of money to take all the shit we're going to have to take for the next 48 hours. And we're going to have to take it together, and we're going to have to figure it out." And I said, "Get ready for this film session I'm about ready to show, because I'm coming after you. And I'm coming after Kawhi, and I'm coming after Danny Green, and I'm coming after Marc Gasol, because you guys got to play better." And he said, "Okay." And game 2, we won by 38 points. We played defense like I've never seen a team play defense before in my life. And I told him after the game, "We can go as far as we want to go now. You guys are here. You experience how good you can be, and we're ready to go." I don't know why I'm telling this story about this question.
But we like it. We like it. We like it a lot.
But it's a good story. I'll stop talking now.
You know, during these 2 days, in few different companies, we tried to describe you with some attributes, you know? And then I heard a lot of great attributes like energy, passion, enthusiasm, systematic way. But let's stay on passion, enthusiasm, responsibility. Do we have, or can we have, methodology how to spread this virus of enthusiasm and passion and responsibility to coaches or even to players? Bob?
I thought it was rather fascinating with the opening ceremony here. I don't know who the first man was, the general secretary of Hungarian Federation, but he spoke about the country, he spoke about the community, and he referenced culture. You can have a team, you can have a program, but it's really difficult to have a culture. And I believe that Nick and I represent a culture that everyone here should embrace with 2 arms. We are street fighters. We were raised from the bottom. We weren't born with silver spoons in our mouths. We weren't sent to the best schools in America. We weren't given the greatest jobs to begin our career. He coached in England, I coached in high school. And not for 1 year or 2 years. We did it multiple years. And we didn't know where that was going to take us. But every day, something happened that energized us, that inspired us, that encouraged us, that motivated us to keep fighting. We should be representatives for you. You should get the message from our presence here, from what we have done in our lives. Dreams do come true.
Thank you very much. Nick?
Well, I answer this more through Bob. I think that if you don't get inspired by watching the energy when he talks and the love of the game and the passion, how can, that's our job. Again, I say, do you have energy? Are you giving energy to people, or are you taking it? Are you taking people's energy, or are you giving? He's given. I try to give. And again, you know, lots of people ask me very nicely here today, you know, you tired yesterday? I said, no. Are you tired today? No. I mean, this is basketball. Luckily, I got the bug, right? Somewhere along the line, I got the bug, and I still have the bug, and I could talk to you people all day about basketball and all night. Right?
Even when I tried to stop you yesterday, he was angry on me. Why you stop me? Okay, next question. My last. I suppose you prepared other questions. It's about ego, not eagle, ego. Let's talk about how coaches can learn from players. Doesn't matter if college player, university player, or NBA player. Is it possible? In what way? And how we can use this opportunity, because they are also looking for best solutions on the court. Bob?
One of the greatest deficiencies in our world today is leadership. A second great deficiency is truth. One of the casualties of the culture that we live in, what is truth? Who are our leaders? And I think that the position that we are in as coaches, the joy, the sorrow, the win, the loss, it's such a dramatic difference in emotions every day. You need to confront the truth of what that is. And then you need to be able to lead your team, yourself, to the next step to handle that truth. In post-game, I say a few words just like Nick, but I never lie to our players. I honor my commitment to them to tell them the truth. Sometimes that hurts, but that's what leadership is. As a parent, it sometimes hurts me to tell our children, you cannot do this, you must be home at this time, you have to do this. And all of their friends are doing something different that their parents don't hold them accountable for. And sometimes I see the pain on our children's faces. But the truth is, if I'm a true leader, that pain should only make them stronger. And that's what we're missing in our world today. That there's an unwillingness to confront the truth, and in the process, an unwillingness to lead.
Thank you very much. I would like to give this record, this tape to my son, to my daughter, to listen. Doesn't matter what job they are going to do in their life. Thank you very much, Bob. Nick.
I mean, I think that I, a lot of times, try to include the players in a lot of decisions. So I do learn a lot from them. And, you know, I talked about the box and one. I went to Kyle Lowry and said box and one, and he took it to the rest of the team. And I learned from him that maybe his leadership to them was more important than mine at that point, right? And I go through that a lot with our guys. They have a lot of good ideas for me. I really try to have an open mind myself, an open line of communication to hear how they want to do things. But again, just similar to what Bob said, I have a player named Chris Boucher. Does anybody here know Chris Boucher? He's about maybe our 8th or 9th man, maybe 8th man on the team. He's about 6'8". I don't think he weighs 200 pounds. I think he's about 190 pounds. He came from the absolute roughest streets of Montreal, Canada. Kicked around as a young player. He's skinny. Went to Oregon, played pretty good there, got hurt. Went to the D-League, went to Golden State. They put him in the D-League. They cut him. He went to our D-League team. Finally stuck in there. Anyway, about 5 years later now, Chris Boucher just signed a $35 million contract this summer. And he hasn't been the easiest person to coach. We've had our share of disagreements, let's say, right? And never anything over the line or whatever, but disappointments for me. I want him to be better. I want him to be more of a team player. I want him to be better. And he signed his contract the other day, like a couple weeks ago, and he said at his press conference, which surprised me a little bit. He said at his press conference, Coach always told me, Chris, you're messing up. And here I am. He had to tell me a lot. Chris, you're messing up. Do better. Do better. And I think that goes to Coach's point. Like, you got to stand in there, man. And listen, you know that little talk I gave after that Orlando game? I mean, I'm getting into Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green and Kyle. I'm getting into these guys. Coach, I did the film before that game. I put 18 clips up. I made it halfway through clip number 1. Because DJ Augustine, we're not talking about Allen Iverson or Steph Curry, or we're talking about DJ Augustine had 28 points. I made it through halfway through clip 1 and had to get into those guys. And I think we got to do it. It's all done out of trying to give them what they really need. The truth, right? Leadership, direction, and a plan to succeed.
Thank you very much. Please, some questions? Yes, we have there.
I got a question for both of you. Who inspired you the most as a coach or as a person in your life?
I am someone who never gives my top 3 or my top 5 desserts, beers, countries, cities. I certainly am not going to give my top 3 or 5 coaches. There are so many that have inspired me, and it's not just in the world of basketball. It's in every part of life. You see, I think we are coaches in every aspect of our life. We're a coach as a husband. We're a coach as a father or mother. We're a coach as a sibling. We're a coach as a member of the community. So we're coaching constantly. So I can read a political newspaper and see a coach in a politician. I could watch a movie and see a coach as a movie star. I could look at the game of football, or the game of baseball, or the game of soccer and see a coach in that regard. So there are so many that have influenced me, I could never pin down one. I will tell you this, I steal everything. I invented nothing, I have stolen everything.
Similar for me, I'm more, again, just the love of the game. A lot of my love of the game started when I knew I wasn't going to be able to continue playing. I got a degree in accounting, and I sure as hell didn't want to be an accountant, right? I don't know why I got a degree. I got a good grade in an accounting class about my sophomore year in college, so I took another one, and then I took another one, and the next thing you know, I had a degree in accounting, but I saw my basketball playing career coming to an end and thought I would try coaching, and stayed in and went to this island of the UK and just started trying to teach myself. There was nobody to talk to really. I called up Laszlo, and we'd talk some basketball. We worked together, but there wasn't any games on TV there. I had to order VHS tapes. You guys remember VHS tapes? Yeah. I had to order VHS tapes from this company called Pontel in Germany and Switzerland, and they'd ship them to my hotel, and I'd put them in my VCR. I'd watch them 30 times, watch NBA games over and over and over, and I was studying the triangle offense. I was one of those coaches fascinated with the Bulls, and I was going to I ran the triangle offense for about 8 or 9 years, and it ended up being a lot like what Phil Jackson said it was. It was more like I'd sit around with my players, and we'd watch the Bulls game, and we'd say, hey, let's try that start. Let's do that entry. Let's make that back screen, and we'd work it out together. It was more of a chemistry builder than it was an offense that was worth a damn for my team, but it was a team builder. So I just tried to, was just learning on my own and making my own mistakes, and probably more of my mentors were teachers. Guy I took a class from at University of Northern Iowa called Daryl Mudra. I talked about that book, Freedom in the Huddle. I studied and read and devoured that book over and over, and I still do today. I had another professor called Hendrik Marcinkiewicz at the University of South Dakota, educational psychologist who I'm still close with today. He's not a basketball person at all, but he's intellect of how to teach better, what motivates people to learn, people like that for me.
Thank you very much. Some more questions? Yes, we have there and there. First, our left side.
Okay.
Hi. I have a question to both of us. COVID-19, it's a hard time for everybody, but how you feel about that, how you think about this challenge and how you solve it as a coach?
The most challenging aspect of it for me was that as an NCAA coach, we have a stopwatch. We have 4 years. We aren't paid big money. And as a result, our players did not have an opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament basically for 2 years. They did not have the same experience that they had dreamed about since they were 8, 9, 10, 12-year-old boys. And you can only imagine what that must have been like for our international players. Our player from Austria, our player from England, our player from Denmark, our player from New Zealand, our player from Korea, our player from Iceland and Italy. What that must have been like for their parents who trusted their son in my care, and now they're in isolation in the United States and not even playing basketball. That was the biggest challenge for me, how much it impacted the lives of our players in terms of giving them what they had dreamed about and taking that away.
Yeah, I mean, for just like everybody, it was difficult. You know, we were on the West Coast road trip. I think we had the best record in the NBA. We just won every game on the road trip. We played Utah last. Rudy Gobert was the one who came out. I was actually at a dinner. We were sitting there and the message came across everybody's phone. I was sitting there next to Marc Gasol and Fred VanVleet and all these guys were at a charity dinner. And Marc Gasol was like, oh my God, I was just guarding Gobert. So we all had to go directly to the hospital because we just played Utah and get tested. Season ends. We go to the bubble. I was telling this coach the other day, we set up our own bubble in Florida at a hotel. It wasn't even open. They just opened the hotel for us, and we had a gym. And we could come in with one player and one coach for 1 hour. And then somebody would come in and wash the gym for 30 minutes. And then one more player and one more coach could come in. So we'd have to work out our whole team, start at 8 in the morning and go to 11 o'clock at night just to get them all 1 hour of shooting. That's how it started back for us. Anyway, it was tough. I mean, it was tough, and we just had to, again, try to face every day and every practice. You know, I say that a lot. I'm not always maybe in the greatest mood or greatest energy or greatest place mentally when I am sitting in my office before I walk out onto the floor, but once I open the door, I'm gonna clap my hands and I'm gonna get a pep in my step and get ready to go. And really had to do that. Like really had to press for positive words, positive movements, giving everyone lift up, right? For a lot of months. Because then we got kicked out of Toronto. We had to go to Tampa. But wasn't much fun it's okay for me. I'm used to coach. You know, I'm a coach. Throw me in another hotel, whatever. But people in Canada had to take their kids out of school. You know, other staff members moved to Florida. They were super uncomfortable. I mean, lots of things. So we had to do our best to really stick together, really be positive, and let's hope that we're done with it. We still haven't really had a normal season yet since it's hit. Hopefully this year we'll all cross our fingers and pray and whatever we do, okay?
It was a great challenge, but also opportunity for personal development.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Next question.
My question is about a leader. Can we make a leader, or you think that a leader need to be born like a leader? Thank you.
I think there's a combination of factors. The leader is someone who grows through experience, through adversity, through challenge. So I think there are some biographical, personal experiences that a man or a woman has that nurture and galvanize and cultivate the ability to be a leader. But I also believe that something happens historically that offers a window of opportunity for someone to become a leader. And I don't know what the perception of Winston Churchill is here in Hungary, but I do know that during World War II, he was considered a great leader in the West, but right after World War II, he was voted out of office. And it was during that time of crisis in World War II, where the Battle of London was raging, that this man, who had all kinds of issues, I mean, he was a knucklehead, but he had the capacity to energize that country and get it through a most difficult time. And had he not done that, had he not had that leadership, perhaps Hitler would never have been stopped. So I think it's a combination of internal presence, internal character traits, plus experiences you've had, plus an historical factor that presents itself.
I agree. I would say that I spend more time trying to develop myself as a leader than I do anything else. So I'm still developing into a better leader, I hope. I really like to study leaders. I like to study books on leadership. I like to study other coaches. I like to study other leaders in business, whatever. So I think there is, I mean, again, I think my environment prepared me to be a leader. You know, I was a little kid and I was a point guard. I was a little kid, I was a pitcher. I was a quarterback on football team. You know, I was in those leadership roles, again, because I had all these older brothers that I'd been playing sports since I was a little kid, getting my ass kicked, right? But when I'd get with my group, I was kind of the natural leader, but I still believe that I'm trying to develop into a better leader every week.
Thank you.
Hello. Not a serious question as the ones before, but still pretty interesting for me. How is your connection to successful teams you had, like for example Unique with your championship winning team, or also with Davidson College, some successful teams? How is your connection even years after it?
I'm very lucky to have a relationship with players that I coached back in 1972. It's one of the things that I really believe is essential as a coach, to show a commitment to the guys who laid it on the line for you every day in practice, who created a culture for you, who taught you by what they did, and I will be forever indebted to them. And I began my presentation yesterday with the word gratitude. And that word gratitude is something that is a part of my being. Gratitude for what these people did for me. And as I said, that's 50 years of players, 50 years of rosters, and I still am in incredible contact with so very many of them. And maybe it's not monthly, or maybe it's only once a year or twice a year. I try to make it a point of calling them all on their birthday. And that's a lot of birthdays to remember. Thank goodness these phones came along where you could put the birthday in them and it pops up on your phone. That's incredible. That really helps me. And I'm very technologically handicapped, but I can do that. But that's one of the ways that I've stayed in touch with our players, particularly on their birthday. And as I said, weddings and baptisms, and I've had that extraordinary gift to be able to share in their growth beyond their playing days, in their growth as husbands, as fathers, as workers in their community. It's been a great joy for me.
Coach, have you hired many of your players as coaches?
That's a great question. When I took my first college coaching job, I hired 3 of my former high school players to be my 3 assistant coaches. On the current Davidson staff, there are 5 assistant coaches. 4 of them played for me. So it's an incredible thing to nurture your culture by adding people who are part of your culture.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things. Is I don't get to totally pick all my coaches, but it's been really fun to bring some of my former players through. And you're right, man, are they good advocates for the program. They've lived it and they believe in it, and they're really helpful. And for me, I think I get the same. I get a real kick out of, we had a 25-year reunion from the 1996 Birmingham Bullets team that I told you about yesterday, and that was amazing. And it was table officials and volunteers that sold merchandise and players, and I mean that to me is amazing. And even when Coach Laszlo was showing these guys, I mean, I coached some of these guys. Coached against Amici, and I coached Bucknell and against Bucknell, as I mentioned as well that year. And it's just great to have all those memories from all the moments, you know, in the trenches, so to speak, moments is good. And I cherish those calls and those reunions as well, for sure. Yep.
Thank you. Maybe one more question related to the future of basketball. Close, few years, and far future, 10, 15, 20 years. What will make difference for success in basketball? What is your opinion? Because you obviously have a vision, and you are always one step forward, you know? What do you think in this, especially far future, what will make difference?
There has never been a time in the world of basketball where so much information has become available and so much education has become available. A facility like this, a clinic like this, in America right now, Darko, I'm not sure what happens with the referees in Europe in terms of education, but the educational process for referees in America right now is extraordinary. It's not working, but it's absolutely extraordinary. So we constantly have this quest to get better, and the opportunity to get better presents itself every day. And then a pivotal aspect of the quest for excellence is to have heroes. We are creating heroes. And I say that we are creating heroes because of all the attention in the media, the amount of games on television, but something that is totally different for me now than 20 years ago. There are women who are heroes in the world of basketball. And back when I was a player, Kathy Rush in Immaculata College in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, that was the only thing anyone ever knew about women's basketball. Now it's extraordinary how many great women players are there, how many great women coaches are there, women referees. So as a result, we're creating heroes for men and for women. And I think that's one of the pivotal parts of our quest to move forward towards excellence, that it's a shared journey. And it's a journey in which everyone now can put their fingerprints on.
Thank you very much.
Whew, I wish I knew where things were going, but I think that one of the reasons they hired me at Toronto was they thought I was going to do things differently. I had a different background than just a typical NBA assistant for a number of years. Then he becomes head coach, and I did do a lot of things different. What is changing? Well, there's a lot more teams using multiple defenses in the NBA now. Lots. All of a sudden, 4 years ago when I was a head coach, hardly anybody was. Steve Kerr and Steph Curry complained about my box and one in 2019, and they were using it to beat Dallas this year, right? So I think there's some changes. I think the offense changed incredibly fast. The number of three-pointers taken went through the roof really quickly, and the defense didn't really react to it. The defense is now starting to react to it and catch up a little bit. So I think there's always changes of how the game's being played and developed. I think a lot of it, again, is determined a little bit by the rules. Are they gonna call hand checking? Are they not gonna call hand checking? Are they gonna call the travel? Are they not? I mean, that determines where the ball can get to, and it's constantly evolving. And I find it interesting. I mean, I try to think a lot about what's coming next or what I can do different. Not just for the sake of being different, but what can be done differently. And I don't know what the answer is, but I'm trying to experiment and find out.
Let's talk.
As a follow-up to that, the Chicago Bulls film with Jordan, The Last Dance. During COVID, I asked, it was showing on television in America, I asked Bill Wennington to get on a Zoom with our team because he was in the film quite a bit, and Bill Wennington played with the Bulls. So Bill gets on the Zoom and was a great inspiration to our players, current roster. But one of our guys said to him, Bill, who would win a game between the Bulls and the Warriors? And the Warriors had, when they had Durant, they won a championship with Durant. Who would win a game between you guys and the Warriors with Stephen and Durant and Klay Thompson? And Bill's response was, who are the referees? And I know he didn't mean bad referees, good referees. He meant by the way the game was called, by how it was officiated, the hand checking. And you have to remember the Detroit Pistons and Chuck Daly with the bully boys of Lambeer, and those guys were really crazy. And it was a physical game, and it still is a physical game, but that's the evolution that's happening in this game. The adjustments of the rules that Darko referred to. Fabio suggested maybe a 4-point shot, I don't know, or a longer distance shot. Stephen Curry certainly has changed the game by the distance that he is shooting from. So I think there are going to be changes technically in the game, and that's all going to cover everything. But the biggest thing I see is that there's heroes out there that's going to nurture interest in the game.
What about lifestyle? Let's talk about 3, 4, 5 hours players spend with us, okay? On court, near the court, in facility, during the traveling more. But still, we have approximately, in average, 18 to 20 hours they spend alone with their families, education, feeding, sleeping, with social life. spending some time with mobile phone and different devices, you know? Maybe in future, just an idea, if we can influence 20 hours, maybe we can do much more even in general performance.
Well, I think if you did that, you'd have to cut back on their salaries. They're certainly not going to work less, play less games. And I've often said that the EuroLeague and the European club leagues are the greatest because of the number of games they play. And I can remember when in Lega Uno, Lega Due in Italy, they were playing 35, 40 games a year. That was before even the EuroLeague. So 1, maybe 2 games a week. Can you imagine the NBA doing that today? Hey, you guys are tired? We're not going to play 81 games this year. We'll only play 40. And we're cutting your salary in half. How do you think the NBA guys would react to that?
They want to play 40 and get double salary. Yeah, I mean, what was the question?
Doesn't matter. About lifestyle, of course.
Well, our guys spend a lot of time at the gym. I thought one of the interesting things that I learned from Kawhi was, or saw from Kawhi Leonard was he would show up 8:30 in the morning, get out of his car, and he'd go in and lift weights, and he'd go get a massage, and he'd go stretch, and he'd go shoot.
Self-care.
And then we'd have film and watch practice, and then he'd go cold tub, hot tub, maybe shooting at like 5 o'clock. His car would come pick him up and he'd leave, and never make any issue, not even a frown, a bad thought. He knew that was what his day was like, to be great. Didn't even faze him, not one day ever. Like, I'm going to work. He was happy to do it. He was boom there, and a lot of our guys kind of adopted that from him. So we have a lot of guys that spend most of the day there, very little time practicing. Sometimes it's like an hour team practice, hour 15 minutes, but lots of other things, you know, stretching and treatments and weights, and they feed them as well. You know, there's a cafe restaurant in there, you know, so they'll eat breakfast, they'll eat lunch, they'll take food home with them, whatever it is. So
that is the reason.
That's my thought. I mean, one of my thoughts is I don't really get all that hung up on, like, I'm even actually thinking about scheduling time at halftime to let them check their phones, because they have their phones, man. They have their phones, and it's almost like I'm making them more uncomfortable by not letting them. It almost literally say, listen, it's 15 minutes in the half. Coaches are gonna come in at 10. Have your phones put away by the time we get in. Just don't let me see them. Okay, I'm gonna know you're checking them, but those kind of things I'm trying to adjust. It's like with this jumbotron, their whole lives are played out digitally now, and that's what I'm just trying to keep up. And I think it's the best. It's the way they learn. It's the way they move, and I'm trying to learn and move with them, even though I feel really old today.
And for the very end, please, shortly, can you give take-home messages to our coaches? Whatever you want, whatever you feel from your heart here after 2 days in Radgeber Academy.
There are 2 things that I think you should understand. You must grow tough without losing your tenderness. That's the challenge of being a coach. You've got to be disciplined, tough, but you've got to care and be tender. What a contrast, what a parallel that is, but there's such conflict all the time. I think one of the greatest gifts that Stephen Curry has is that he is confident. He is extremely confident, but he balances that confidence with humility. You look at our politicians today, Boy, they stand up there on a podium and a pedestal, and they're demonstrating great confidence. But do they demonstrate humility? That's one of the great gifts that Stephen Curry has given to the world of sport, the balance of humility and confidence. And my final point is this. When you go home tonight and you're just about ready to go to bed, and you get your toothbrush, and you're in your bathroom and you're brushing your teeth, as you brush your teeth, keep telling yourself, I see greatness. I see greatness. I see greatness. And tomorrow when you wake up in the morning and you brush your teeth, I see greatness. I see greatness. I see greatness. You are what you think you are. You become who you think you will become. There's greatness already within you. Let it come out. And I'll tell you this, I am a living example. He is a living example. Dreams do come true.
Nick.
Well, Coach, that's tough to follow, right? There's some times when one of my players will say something in a team meeting and I know not to say anything, right? And it feels like one of those times, but listen, I have to compliment all of you. I don't know I've been to a place where I've felt from you such focus. These have been long sessions and long days, and I can feel your interest and your passion just with your body language and your respect and how much you're trying to learn. And I don't know if I could say we could have this kind of attention for this long well, I haven't seen it, so I appreciate feeling that from you. It makes it very easy to sit here and talk and present and try to let you learn from us. So I just wanted to say that's a good start. It's a great start. You seem to be very vigilant and very hard workers. And I would say that that's right up there with what Coach says to me. I just continue to work hard and learn. And I loved every job I had along the way, even when I was in Darby, England, or Enid, Oklahoma, or McAllen, Texas, or Des Moines, Iowa, or Ostend, Belgium, or wherever the hell else I was, 10 more places. But I loved every one of those jobs, and each year I always just wanted to get better. Just my focus was to get better. And when I was in the D League and I was winning, I won a championship in the D League, and we were winning a lot, and we were getting players called up, and everybody kept asking me, how come you can't get in the NBA? I didn't care. I just knew that those 50 games in that league, coaching all the revolving door and players coming and going, I was getting so much better as a leader and as a coach that I didn't care. It wasn't about getting to the NBA for me. It was about, I knew I was growing so fast each year in that league. And I think, again, I say grab a team, start coaching them, get in front of them, call timeouts, call plays, make substitutions. I don't care if it's 12-year-olds in a camp, summer camp. You'll start getting better, and you'll start developing your own thoughts, and you'll start developing your own ideas, and you will get better. But you got to coach to get better. And don't be afraid to experiment. And I'll tell one last story. When I got the job, Phil Jackson was gracious enough to meet me one of our medical people worked with him in LA. He was with the Lakers, and they called him up and went out to Montana. Phil's got a big house on a lake out in Lake Flathead, Montana, and he met me, and we had coffee, and we talked all day, and then we had dinner, and we talked all night, and we had breakfast, and we talked all day, and talked all night, and had breakfast again the next day. Anyway, it was finally time for me to leave after about 3 days, and he took me outside, and he said, I want to tell you 2 things. And he said, one is respect the basketball gods. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, you've been hired by your owner to make the best decisions for your organization. You always have to do that. Okay. Then he said, and this is really almost exactly what you just said, Coach. He said, and I also want you to think at times when you're coaching the players, you have a sword. One end of the sword is sharp, and you're going to have to prod them, get them going, get on their ass, get them to play better, motivate them, push them. Then he said, every now and then you got to look at the other end of the sword, the handle, and that should represent to you compassion. You got to understand where they've come from and what they may be going through. Really similar to what you just said. So it's a toughness, it's a love, right? And it's a caring that we can get the most out of them, that even more, as Laszlo said, than they think they can become themselves. That's it.
Thank you.
Now we have a closing ceremony, and let me just tell a few sentences to the spectators, our guests on Hungarian. Azért fölteszünk nekik majd még egy kérdést, hogy azért elég hülyén érzi.
After that, I'm gonna ask another question, because now I feel a little bit strange because they have to say goodbye as well. One thing is what I'm really interested in. How many of you were here in the first conference? Thank you very much. This is the half, 50%. I think that we had a great time in the last conference. What what I miss? My thing, what I miss is that we are not here, that not 3,000 people are here. And what the coaches did say, what I did, I double-checked marketing, press. Maybe we had to throw a map. Somehow we wanted to gather all the information. What is this all about? And the truth is, I won't give up. So it wasn't really a strange thing that we are not here, not 3,000 people are here, and it is really strange for us. But thank you very much that you were here. I always take rock and roll as an example. This crew sometimes an advertisement. and a big rock band played in front of 62 people, but they played for the 62 people as if they were more 1,000 people there. So this is the same here. So I would like to say thank you. I would like to say thank you for your attitude, because it was a good feeling for me to organize this kind of conference. So I said in January we will move forward, we will do it. Maybe we continue in December or in January. Maybe it will be a little bit more scientific, not on court but out of the court, more scientific, and maybe next summer we're gonna say to you the date to you. So now it is the 23rd of July. Lati, what do you think about? Because I said it in December that we're gonna have a conference in July. Why is it too early to say that? If there is a Rolling Stones concert, then I write it into my calendar. So if I want to go then I know just in time. So this was a kind of Rolling Stones concert in terms of basketball. So I got a good feedback. This facility, this methodology and education center is one of the most important things. Measuring is only one thing. Do this, do that, have the U18 national team with extra measurements. We try to set up standards for the U18 group in order to have, but they didn't came here in order to measure them. So it is strange. One of our biggest thing is to build up a basketball culture, and not all of the people understand that. So if we would have a higher level or a bigger basketball culture level, I asked my gardener, do you know who is the NBA champion? So in other basketball cultures which are in a higher level, the gardeners also know who the champion is. In Hungary, the most important thing is to build up a basketball culture. It is a long way, long path, but in those countries where there is a basketball culture, there is a success. In Szombathely, Körmend, and Szolnok, Sopron, we have good examples. They have basketball culture. So it was in Pécs. They have. We also have basketball culture. So the basketball in Pécs ruined when the culture died here in Pécs, and this is what we have to do and what we have to work on.
Thank you for everything. And the closing ceremony, I told that I'm extremely happy and proud, and the only thing that I miss, that we were only 500 and not 3,000. Okay, summer, whatever, and I told them that you exactly told them that thank you that you had the energy as we were 5,000, not only 500. But what we need and what we need here in Hungary, and I had luck to be with Bob 2-3 days before, to build a culture. And maybe my message is not enough, or they don't understand, or I don't have a talent to deliver the message, but to be sure, help me, Bob, help me, Nick, for the closing ceremony, not to say hello, to close with the new message, what we really need here. What basketball culture, what does it mean? Basketball culture, what the hell is basketball culture? And just with a few sentences, with a message, explain, and let's finish with that let's, barátaim, kollégák, let's make basketball culture here in Hungary.
It's a very simple thing. Commitment. Commitment means you put 2 feet in the door. And you put 2 feet in the door and you honor that commitment. You lose, you make a mistake, you get fired, your players don't listen to you. Stay committed. Honor that commitment. Those who have invested the most are the last to surrender. Don't ever surrender.
For me, it's all about making players better. That's what I've focused on in my 9 years at Toronto, and just a total commitment to that. And I think, again, if you get commitment from your staff, from your front office, from your boss, and you get your coaches out to work, and the players will buy into that, they're going to get better. It's going to result in winning. And I go back to the same things. We care about winning and competing to win, and we care about improving people's lives and doing that to the best of our ability 12 months a year, every single day. That's all I can say. We do it with tremendous energy. We want to help them get better. We want to take them to their dreams, and then they'll help the organization and they'll help the sport grow. And we're doing the same. We're trying to grow the sport in Canada, right? I'm searching every day for answers and more answers to grow it even more across the country. So I might be asking you guys to come to Canada and speak soon, right? We'll work together, because again, I believe there was a coach in England one time told me, you know, go forth, spread the gospel, and that's what we're trying to do. Yep.